Tanse, I'm criss-crossing. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre are not only running against each other to be the next Prime Minister in this election campaign, but the Liberal and Conservative leaders are also virtually running beside each other in adjacent Ottawa area ridings. APTN's Fraser Needham caught up with some of the candidates running against Carney and Poilievre.
The Nepean riding is in the west end of Ottawa and mainly contains a large suburb of Barrhaven. Chandra Arya is currently the sitting MP of the riding, but has been forced out by the Liberals to make way for Mark Carney. We catch up with Sham Shukla, a federal civil servant running for the NDP, at a coffee shop in Barrhaven. Shukla says the issues on the minds of voters in this riding include affordability and the federal government's return to office mandate.
Issues like housing, like transit.
He says the task of running against the Prime Minister is no doubt daunting, but feels the NDP is the best party to stand up for regular working people like himself.
It's to improve government and to ensure that a lot of local issues are not overlooked. I just go back to that. I think regardless of who the winner is in this riding, I think I'll be able to continue to highlight that and keep the focus on issues that matter to people in their everyday lives.
Green candidate Greg Hopkins is a longtime Barrhaven resident who works as a youth councillor. We meet him at the Matahoki farm, where he says he's running a low-key campaign. With the Trump tariffs dominating the campaign, Hopkins admits it is difficult to get important environmental issues on the agenda.
Sea levels are rising, forests are on fire, food's drying up.
As far as running against Mark Carney, he says he is taking the challenge in stride and happy to do it.
I'm thrilled to be able to run against a prime minister. So it's got my kids interested in politics now. My 15-year-old says, well, the next election I'll be 18 and I'm running. And I said, that's awesome. So this is it's pretty cool.
The Carlton riding is in the southwest part of the city, below the Nepean riding. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has been elected in variations of the riding since 2004. In this election, a total of 91 candidates are running, most of them independents. We catch up with small businessman and Liberal candidate Bruce Fanjoy at his campaign office in Stittsville.
Overwhelmingly, the issue is the Canada-U.S. relationship and how we...
Fanjoy says the key issue of this campaign is who can best stand up to Donald Trump, and Pierre Poilievre is not up for the job.
Our parliamentary democracy requires everyone, even if you're Pierre Poilievre, to win your riding. And he's held this riding for a long time, has accomplished nothing, neither for the riding or for the country, and it's a record that he needs to be held to account for.
Out for some nearby door knocking, area resident Mohammed Chowdhury calls himself a swing voter, but says he is leaning Liberal because of the tariffs issue.
I was looking at the background and the strength in between our MP, who is PAP, and Carney, and it looks like Carney is much more deserved to be the next Prime Minister because of the tariff war that's happening in between US and Canada.
Different varieties of herbs, vegetables.
Mark Watson, also a small businessman, is running for the Greens, and we meet up with him at his acreage in Dunrobin. He says with climate change a key issue, the Conservatives and Poilievre are headed in the wrong direction.
This riding needs a better choice after 7 terms, and quite frankly, the planet needs a better choice. We've got, the leader of the opposition who believes we need to continue exploiting our fossil fuels to pay for all his ambitious programs. This is the industry of yesterday.
APTN reached out to Nepean Conservative candidate Barbara Ball and Carlton NDP candidate Beth Prokaska, but did not hear back by airtime. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
As political candidates enter the home stretch with their campaigns vying for the top spots in government, we take a look at the riding in British Columbia, where a Métis woman is hoping she gets voted in so she can have her say in Ottawa. APTN's Tina House has that story.
Nikita Steele is Métis and new to politics. She is running for the Green Party in the Vancouver East riding.
My platform is one of change. It's about dismantling the status quo and changing the narrative for Indigenous people, but also our brothers and sisters across Turtle Island. Federal policy impacts all of us. Any decisions made here impact me. I want to address housing. I want to address the opioid crisis and all of the things that have good intentions but have no follow through. I want to be the voice of people trying to push these things further.
So this is a big issue.
Jenny Kwan is seeking another term for the NDP. She has been the Member of Parliament for Vancouver East since 2015. And before that, she was the MLA for Vancouver Mount Pleasant for 19 years. Kwan says she wants to get re-elected so she can continue her work to fix housing needs across Canada.
We know that the Indigenous community is disproportionately represented in the unhoused population. That's why in the last Parliament, as the NDP critic, I fought tooth and nail to access funding and real resources for Indigenous, Inuit and Métis housing. And I was able to secure $4 billion for on-reserve funding and then $4.3 billion for people who are living away from homes. And this is the first time in Canadian history that we were able to force the federal government to acknowledge housing rights for Indigenous peoples wherever they go.
However, Kwan says that of the $8.3 billion, $300 million was distributed, but then the election was called, so the rest is held up.
So the job is not done, and we need to make sure that money flows.
And Nikita Steele has a message for voters.
I'm passionate, I'm tenacious. I'm not a professional politician. I'm a great choice for that. I've been educated in politics. I've taken a lot of other credentials that make me a viable candidate, and I really, really hope that people make the right decision to vote for me.
This is one of the most important elections, and I really urge people get out to vote. I urge that you support the NDP, support people who will fight for you, who will stand and be good allies, real allies of Indigenous, Inuit and Métis peoples, and who will not back down.
APTN extended an invitation to the Liberal candidate and the Conservative candidate in the Vancouver East riding, but we did not hear back by the time this story went to air. Canadians head to the polls April the 28th. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
There was tension in the press room during last week's federal debate in Montreal over question period. But as APTN Savannah Craig reports, some also took issue with the reporter's question, stating unmarked graves and burial sites remain unproven.
Turmoil broke out in the press room after the federal English debate last Thursday night, following the announcement that the debate commission would be cancelling question period with the federal leaders.
I'm sorry to announce that there will be no scrum tonight with the leaders because we don't feel that we can actually guarantee a proper environment for this activity.
Frustration was directed towards Rebel News.
Look at all of you. What journalistic rationale is there to have this many people in the room?
With some journalists reacting negatively to questions asked by this outlet.
I blame you 100% for the Q&A being cancelled.
This follows unrest between some journalists during question period the night before at the French language debate.
Drea Humphrey with Rebel News.
Okay.
Your party...
You know I'm going to go with this, all right?
Can I speak?
Yeah, you can. I'm just going to say you know where I'm going to go with it, though.
One question by Rebel News reporter Drea Humphrey to NDP leader Jagmeet Singh focused on unmarked graves and burial sites.
These claims have been disproven by bands that excavated and remain unproven by those that have not.
Singh refused to answer Humphrey.
Your question is another example of why I don't respond to agencies like Rebel News that promote misinformation and disinformation.
Kimberly Murray is the former special interlocutor to unmarked graves and burial sites. She disagrees with the Rebel News reporter.
It's so hurtful and re-traumatizing to survivors who are the living witnesses and who experience witnessing the deaths in the institution.
Murray's role was to independently engage with survivors, Indigenous families, and communities that are recovering missing children and unmarked burials.
There's photographs of children being buried. There's photographs of funerals taking place where no parents were there.
The Debate Commission denied Rebel News from receiving accreditation in 2019 and 2021. But both years, Rebel News took the Debate Commission to federal court, which allowed it to attend the debates. APTN News reached out to the Debate Commission to confirm why Rebel News was granted accreditation for this debate. It did not respond to our request before our deadline. Canadian Association of Journalists President Brent Jolly says his organization is monitoring the situation.
This isn't just about alternative media. This is about building an alternative universe where some of these ideas and myths or theories are advanced, and the sort of disinformation environment that we're seeing spread on a whole host of topics, including residential school denialism.
APTN News reached out to Drea Humphrey for an on-camera interview to clarify her position, but she insisted on only providing a written response to questions supplied ahead of time. Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Montreal.
Liberal Party leader Mark Carney made an appearance in downtown Winnipeg last night to a sea of supporters. As APTN Sav Jonesa reports, there were cheers when Carney mentioned how his government would support Indigenous people if elected.
Supporters were out in full force at the Liberal Party rally in Winnipeg last night. Hundreds were jam-packed into the standing room-only downtown location to hear Liberal Party leader Mark Carney share his last thoughts with the crowd in the final days of the election campaign. He emphasized creating free trade across the provinces and territories, saying we should have one economy, not 13.
If we are elected, we will do our part. We will put in place legislation by July 1st to eliminate all federal barriers. Free trade in Canada by Canada Day.
Many involved U.S. President Trump and Canadian Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre.
We can't change President Trump. No. So we need a leader who can stand up to him. That leader is not Pierre Poilievre, who draws his inspiration from President Trump, who copies his ideas, whose first instinct when our nation was attacked was to call Canada stupid. Shame.
Carney also mentioned his plans to support Indigenous peoples and reconciliation, a topic that has received little attention by the main party leaders throughout the election.
My government is committed to working in real partnership with Indigenous peoples. That means upholding the principle of free, prior, and informed consent. It means practical steps like doubling the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program to $10 billion. That makes it easier for Indigenous communities not just to be part of projects, but to build long-term wealth by being owners of major resource projects.
Outside of the rally, Pimicikamak Cree Nation Chief David Monias says Carney is the only leader he believes could fight against Trump's threats against Canada. He was also happy to hear Indigenous issues being mentioned.
I've been looking forward to see what he has to say about Indigenous people. I got to hear it today. I haven't heard it from the other people that I went to their rallies and I've seen their rallies, but this one I was really impressed by what he had to say.
Rally goer Glorian Chartrand said it was refreshing and encouraging to hear Carney's platform.
I think exactly what it is that we need as Indigenous people going forward, to be partners and drivers of the economy in the future. I think we're in very, very good hands with Carney.
She says Indigenous voters need to keep this in mind.
The most important thing is to get out and vote. We can make a real difference as Indigenous people if our voices are heard. And in our mainstream community in Canada, the best way to do that is to go out and vote, and those numbers matter. So just take that 10 minutes and make sure that you go cast your vote.
The last day to vote is Monday, April 28th, Election Day. Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
And a reminder that APTN News will have extensive coverage on election night, Monday, April 28th. Our coverage here will kick off at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Here's Dennis Ward with a preview.
APTN News will have reporters spread out across the country, including at the headquarters of Liberal leader Mark Carney, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. Creason and I will also be joined in studio by the former president of the APTN National Council, Cassidy Caron, and Truth in Politics panelist Jennifer Leywitz. Negon Sinclair will also be joining us from Toronto. Nouvelle Nationale host Kim Sullivan will head up our coverage from our Ottawa studio, where she will be joined by McGill University professor Veldon Coburn and former Enoch Member of Parliament Peter Itinawar. Our Decision 2025 coverage begins at 9 p.m. Eastern on APTN. You can also stream it live on our website, aptnnews.ca.
We have more stories after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The two men arrested for the death of a man in White Bear First Nation in Saskatchewan last December appeared in court this week. 22-year-old Jeremy Whitebear and 26-year-old Dwayne Maxey attended provincial court in Carlisle, Saskatchewan yesterday. Both are charged with manslaughter in the death of 33-year-old Talon Lone Thunder. On December 3rd, Carlisle RCMP were called to a home in White Bear. When police arrived, they found Lone Thunder deceased. On December 7th, they arrested Whitebear at a home in the First Nation. And then on December 12th, Maxey was arrested by police in Regina. Whitebear and Maxey's next court appearance is on May 14th. A man from the Ochapowace First Nation in Saskatchewan also appeared in court this week. He has been charged with the death of another man from that First Nation. Last Sunday on April 20th at around 6:45 a.m., Saskatchewan RCMP were called to a home in Ochapowace First Nation to assist EMS with an injured man. When officers arrived, they found 32-year-old Elias Still from Ochapowace. Still was later pronounced deceased by paramedics, and his death was considered suspicious. RCMP later arrested and charged 32-year-old Dustin Allery with one count of second-degree murder. Allery appeared in Broadview Provincial Court on Wednesday. His next court appearance is next Wednesday. An Ontario judge has given Hudson's Bay permission to prepare to auction off thousands of pieces of art and historical artifacts, including the 355-year-old Royal Charter, which launched the company and is considered a significant historical document. AMC Grand Chief Kyra Wilson said that she was deeply concerned and said, given the long-standing relationship HBC has with First Nations, that many of the items up for auction likely have a profound cultural significance to First Nations people. She called the company morally irresponsible and said the move is a continuation of the colonial dispossession of First Nations lands and belongings. The approval comes a day after the Bay announced plans to liquidate its 6 remaining stores. We now want to tell you about this week's 3 web poll questions. This week we asked, do you think the Catholic Church will continue making reconciliation efforts with Indigenous peoples following the passing of Pope Francis? Your answers are yes, no, or unsure. Second question we asked, who do you think will form government in the upcoming election? Is it the Liberal Party, the Conservative Party, the NDP, other, or unsure? And our third question we asked, which Canadian NHL team do you think has the best chance of winning the Stanley Cup? Is it the Toronto Maple Leafs, Winnipeg Jets, Edmonton Oilers, Ottawa Senators, Montreal Canadiens, or unsure? Go to aptnnews.ca to have your say. The poll section is on the right-hand side of the homepage. Our host, Kim Sullivan, is up next to give us a preview of what's coming up on Nouvelle Nationale. We'll be right back. Starting on East Charlottetown 5, St. John 0. La Grande River 6, Happy Valley Goose Bay 5. St. Jovite 13, Quebec City 12. 14 in Peterborough, Sarnia 8 and sunny. Big Trout Lake sunny and 5. Wawa, rain and 5. Churchill -6, Puckatawagan 9. Winnipeg 12, Princess Harbor 2. Regina 9, Yorkton 10. 14 in Meadow Lake, La Ronge 10. High Level 6, Fort McMurray 20. 20 in Calgary, Red Deer 20. Vancouver 17, Bella Coola 18. Sand Spit 11, Smithers 15. Old Crow -3, Rock River -8. 2 in Fort Simpson, Wrigley -2. Tuktoyaktuk -6, Pawatuck -11. Arviat -12, Chesterfield -13. And Arctic Bay -10, Clyde River -6. It's Friday, which means that tonight at 6:30 Eastern Time, our Montreal team takes over to provide you a weekly dose of French news with Nouvelle Nationale. Host Kim Sullivan joins us now. Tanse, Kim.
Hey, Creason. To answer your question earlier, the Habs.
Okay, we'll put that on the board. Kim, there was a big gathering at the United Nations headquarters in New York this week. I understand you will also be tackling some of the big stories from there.
Yes, Quebec actually saw its most important participation of elected officials in New York in 20 years. So we're definitely having news from there en français. I have to say big kudos to Angel Moore as well as Karen, who covered the stories there. Not easy to get French interviews, and they did so for our viewers. So it was very nice of them to do so.
Yeah, those are not always easy to get when it's not your first language, hey?
No, so extra kudos to the two of them.
Kim, you also have some local news stories. Fill us in what those are.
Well, we're covering a protest that happened in Mohawk territory just outside of Montreal midweek. They are saying no to cannabis dispensaries. They want the council to hear them loud because right now the council is kind of going ahead with giving out those permits. So they're trying to put a halt to that. We also have a new partnership with a local college that's bringing post-secondary courses to Nunavik, and an interview with an Indigenous author participating in one of North America's biggest literary festival.
Quite a packed show.
Yes, and I also want to remind everybody that we both did pre and post debate shows, and those are online on our YouTube channel. So if anyone wants to watch before voting on Monday, it's good little information there.
Definitely a good point to make there, Kim.
Yes, join us tonight, 6:30 Eastern. Creason will be here en français.
Hi. Thank you so much, Kim.
Bye.
And that's your daytime newscast for this Friday, April 25th. Dennis Ward is back in a few hours for your evening newscast. Please join us then. As for us, we're back here same time, same place next Monday. Thank you for watching and have a safe weekend. Excellent.